Hi, and welcome to this week's Mortgage Broker broadcast. My guest this week is equity release specialist Mark Thompson, and I wanted to get Mark back onto the podcast. He's been on twice already. He was back in 2021, then 2022, and I just wanted to get him back onto the podcast just to obviously talk about equity release and the market and what's going on right now, but more importantly, talking about equity release referrals and having the importance from a mortgage broker point of view of having somebody to refer to for your equity release opportunities. So Mark's doing really well at that at the moment. He's sort of seeing a lot of brokers outside of his business that are referring to him, adding to websites and all the other things as well. So I just wanted to get Mark back onto the podcast to just talk about that in a bit more detail. He can explain what he's been doing and the quick wins from the mortgage brokers that are referring to him. But so let's just get Mark back onto the podcast. You're listening to the Mortgage Broker broadcast with me, Craig Skelton, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. So welcome back onto the podcast, Mark. How are you?
I'm great, thanks, Craig. Just got back off my holiday. And for once, I was away when the weather was bad in England. So I know that makes me quite a selfish person, but it was nice to be away knowing that the weather was absolutely horrendous in England and I was summing it up somewhere. So that's the first I think it's ever happened to
me. Fair, Mark. You're absolutely right, because there's so many people that I know have gone away, not recently, but like so earlier on in the year and the weather was so bad for them overseas, and then we were sort of loving it up at 30 degrees. So you were lucky there. Yeah, you did definitely time it right to get your holiday in.
I did, yeah, quite happy. So and it's picking up a bit now, so I can't.
Well, we didn't get you onto the podcast to talk about your recent jaunts in overseas holidays. So thanks for coming back onto the podcast. You were here back in May 21, May 21, then you came back in June 22. So it's like an annual occurrence, Mark, this getting you onto the podcast. However, there is a real reason why, well, there's a couple of reasons I wanted to get you back onto the podcast, really, was to just give mortgage brokers an update in terms of equity release world, because we'll go on to that in a second in terms of what you specialize in and what you do. So give an update in terms of equity release world and a little bit about sort of you being an equity release advisor and specialist in that, doing that, because there are quite a few brokers that I know and talk to that are looking to venture into equity release and have that as a badge under their mortgage broking point of view. So I wanted to talk about that as well, but and more importantly, making and just really exploring more about how you're helping mortgage brokers right now with equity release referrals and helping them sort of spot opportunities, and what the ones that are doing well, who are referring clients to you, what are they doing in terms of promoting you, working with you, and that sort of thing. So is that all right? Quite a loose agenda, but is that okay?
Yeah, we like loose agendas. Yeah, it's fine. We'll see where that takes us. I'm sure.
So the first one, Mark. Right, good. I'm glad to hear it. So the first thing is, Mark, just really for those people that haven't heard you before on the podcast or seen you before or saw any of your social medias, do you want to do a sort of quick introduction about who you are? Who is Mark Thompson?
Well, as you said, I'm now an equity release specialist, obviously working alongside the CS Financial Group. I've been doing that for a few years now. I originally came into CS doing standard mortgages, but then quickly realised I enjoyed. I started off by referring quite a lot of equity release cases, and then decided that's where I wanted to go. So I've now dropped mortgages completely. Prior to that, of course, I was an estate agent for 30 plus years, working with a well-known market-leading company as an area director, and was heavily involved in financial services with that role as well. So, selling houses and selling mortgages go hand in hand in my book, and they always did. So I've always been involved in property, financial services, but obviously latterly, more specifically, the equity release. And the main thing I always say about it is I started my career in the law and was helping people from a very early age with issues and problems. And I feel as though I've come full circle, because I'm now back, speaking to clients, helping them with solutions to life problems, That's what I enjoy. That's why I'm doing it, and that's why I've ended up sort of back doing equity release in that sense. It suits my character, and I really get a buzz out of helping people. And really, that's what equity release is about: is providing solutions for people that, in some cases, would have some serious life problems without it. So that's me in a nutshell. I'm not going to go into any more personal detail. Otherwise, that would start bothering people.
No, I think you're absolutely right, man. I think the thing is with, like you said about equity release there, and I know we've talked about in the past, is that it's the right product for the right people. And sometimes it is the only product or the only option for a lot of people. And you're sort of seeing that firsthand from a point of view where they're approaching a mortgage broker or their bank, and they're getting the sort of the firm knowing the face kind of thing. So equity release is not for everybody. And I think the thing is with you as well is that it has to be right for the client. It's not about the sell from your point of view with equity release. It's having the right product for the right people, and it's matching. And it, like you say, it is often the only option. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, it is, or it's the only preferred option that they have. But nobody should ever I mean, obviously, nobody should ever do anything for a client that isn't the right thing for the client. And you'd like to think in our industry that doesn't happen, but unfortunately, it does. And advisors, obviously, this is why consumer duty is coming in. I mean, to me, the consumer duty might as well just be called common sense.
It'd be a lot easier if it was,
but
mate,
I mean,
to be fair.
In reality, I still come across, yeah, but I mean, in reality, I still come across situations where people come to me and they've been advised to do A, B, C, and it was totally incorrect. And it's obviously a case of people just, doing it because they're going to earn money from it. I had a case recently, a financial advisor, not a mortgage advisor, but a financial advisor from an independent firm referred a client to me that was trying to get equity release. He was dealing with quite a large organisation, and he'd been rejected because of property issues. Now, as it was, I could have got him the equity release through our providers, having made the initial investigation. But then I turned around to him and said, "But you shouldn't be doing equity release at all." When we got into the discussion about it, he said, "No, I shouldn't. So why am I doing it?" I said, "I don't know. Why are you doing it? And why was the advisor in the first place trying to place you when it wasn't? It was totally. He was doing debt con. He was trying to debt consolidate a load of credit cards onto equity release, but he could afford the debt. So it was
Wow.
I'm like, why would you take credit card debt and bang it onto a lifetime mortgage? When you can quite happily, not happily, but he was, able to sustain the debt and satisfy it and pay the credit cards off over time. So that was only a few weeks ago, and you're like, who the hell is passing him to trying to get him to do equity release? So it's upsetting when you hear these things, that people are still out there, supposed professionals, that are advising people along those lines.
I think that comes down to obviously individual in terms of the person that you are, Mark. And I know you with your clients, it's all about building that trust, building that relationship, and making sure it is the right thing for that particular client in their circumstances. Because as with everything, it's sort of, is it down to individual needs and individual circumstances? It's not sort of like equity release. It's one of those things like sweeping statements of equity release is not right and it's a wrong product and it's and all the positives are everybody should be doing equity release, like sweeping statements. It's not about that. It's about individuals who maybe it is right for them, maybe it isn't. But until they've sort of sat down and you've had a detailed conversation with them, they will never know whether it's right or wrong for them.
Exactly, and that detailed conversation, as we've discussed before, isn't that's one thing that I mean, again, funny enough, I had a client that reacted to one of our other podcasts that's come to us, and I basically said to him, right, well, we're going to have a sit-down chat, and the chat's going to be at least an hour and a half, because I need to understand you completely moving forward. And he said, well, I'm real grateful it's going to be that length of time. He said, because I don't understand how you'd be able to advise me if you didn't understand me, and those sort of things. So he understood that to get to know him as a client, it would take a considerable amount of time to get into the nitty-gritty. So the fact-finding process with equity release is quite extensive. And again, with consumer duty, it's not just about, well, execution only, you need equity release today. The question is, well, okay, this is your position today, but what's your position going to be tomorrow, next week, next month, next year? So understanding the client, probably for a few years in advance as to where they're going to be. And it's only once you understand that client, you can then advise, is equity release the right thing or not? Or is it the thing that they want to do? Do they feel comfortable with it? So that particular process, I like with my clients for them to really take their own time to actually come to that decision process that it's the right thing to do. So it's not one of those things where we have a quick fact find and right, let's get on with it. It's just, we'll take as long as it takes to get to that realization that actually, yeah, this is going to be right for me or us, and we'll do it. And that can take a week, a month. I've got clients that will take several months or even longer to reach that decision. Everybody's different and every case is different. So, but yeah, as you say, everybody's individual. So every situation is individualistic, and that's how we treat them. So
no, and that's absolutely right. Because I say, it's people. This is a big decision for a client, and I know it's a different aspect really to normal mortgage broking, because clients it's right for them to take time. It's not going to be a case of, so you need to get this in today to get the rates secured, the rates are going up, the rates are coming down, whatever the case may be. It's about making sure that client is fully informed, fully knows the situation, what they getting into, what the benefits are, and obviously they understand the benefits from the financial point of view, but also understanding as well, so really getting into detail. And people will take time over that, which you understand as a specialist in that area, because people will take time. But also as well is generally speaking, it's not just the one client you're seeing, is it? It's just, it can be obviously two clients, families get involved. There's certain different parties within this that have all get involved with the process with regards to equity release.
Well, that's right, and obviously we encourage family members to be involved. Obviously, there's the issue of vulnerability with later life clients is very much to the fore. So we try and get as many people involved as the client requires, wishes, desires, and at the end of the day, yeah, you quite often might be sat with 3 or 4 or 5 people going to it. As we know, in terms of satisfaction rate with equity release, we've discussed before that most people that take equity release are extremely happy with it. The people that have the complaints about it are usually the family that find out that parents have done it without them even realising it. And there's not as much money left in the estate when unfortunately they die. So generally speaking, we always encourage family to be involved, and that does create an extra dynamic to the process. The other thing with equity release, just worth touching on there, is that it's not just a question of borrowing, say, a lump sum, because obviously there are reserve facilities involved. You can actually have a reserve or a drawdown. So where somebody might take 50 grand as a lump sum, but then they might have a 50 grand drawdown where they can, at any stage contact the provider and say, right, that 50,000 that we haven't taken, could I take 3 grand of it, 5 grand of it, or whatever, for whatever life purpose? That creates a lot more of a discussion point, because why would they need a drawdown? Do they need a drawdown? Do they need this reserve moving forward? What might cause them to need that reserve? Having that safety net. A lot of people don't have emergency funds, do they? I think most mortgage brokers, when they're talking to the normal guy in the street getting a mortgage, what's your emergency fund? It's like a sort of a blank look. We don't have emergency funds. So of course, people with equity release can use a drawdown as an emergency fund. So for those things that life throws at them, they know they've got that security of money sat on the sidelines. But again, it's really important that they understand what that is, why they might want it, what the cost implications of that are, and whether or not it's something they want to do or don't want to do. Not everybody needs or wants an emergency fund or a drawdown facility, shall we say. It was a drawdown facility, not an emergency fund. And so that creates more of a discussion point moving forward.
Okay. So in terms of like when we look at, so the idea of like from getting you onto the podcast, Mark, is to obviously to highlight the fact in terms of the products and the way that you are and the trust you have with clients, and you do get obviously you get referrals within the business for equity release, but you do work with quite a few external mortgage brokers, financial advisors as well, who refer their opportunities to you. And like you said, we're not going to talk a lot about consumer duty or common sense as you referred to it from the right point of view, but it's just really to help brokers. I think there's like two things with it. One is to make sure that you've got somebody who you know and trust that you can refer your equity release opportunities to. And I think we'll go on to that, what the opportunities look like in a second. Like I said, I think it's just important for every single mortgage broker to understand and have that process in place, so they know that actually they have got somebody that they know and can turn to with any questions about equity release. If they can refer their clients. At the end of the day, these people, mortgage brokers, work hard to get their clients to get leads and to build up that trust with and retain those clients as well, which is a big thing. So it's important as a mortgage broker to have somebody that you know and trust from a wills and estate planning or conveyancing or full financial advice. And we've talked about that recently. Equity release comes into that because you've got to explore every single option for every single client. And I think even if it's not within your spans of control or your licensing or whatever technical term you want to use with regards to it, it's important to make sure that you have got that avenue to then go, do you know what? I've explored and gone down every single path and I've got to know everywhere. This might fit with Mark, and let's get that client talking to Mark, because there might be something that you could possibly do in terms of helping them with regards to equity release when everybody else has said no to them. And that's where that sort of comes in. So like I say, it's important having that referral to somebody that you sort of trust. What does sort of like the typical, if I'm a mortgage broker right now, and I'm thinking, I don't have a specialist that I refer to, or I maybe refer it to a large corporate. I don't know what happens. It's just a telephone referral, that kind of thing. What's like a typical top 3 referral clients or 3 people recently you've helped who've been referred from a mortgage broker? What does that generally look like from a mortgage broker point of view?
Well, generally speaking, just every mortgage broker is, just rewind a little bit. Every mortgage broker or financial advisor is slightly different in the way they refer business. Some are quite comfortable with equity release as a solution because they've got that knowledge of it, and so they'll just bang me basic details and say, "Can you ring John Smith?" I think equity release is whatever. I get others that ring me fairly regularly saying, "I've got a client here. They are obviously later life customers over 55. Mortgage is due for renewal. I can't place them anywhere, or I'm really struggling to. Do you think we can do anything with them on equity release?" And then we'll have a full discussion, me and the advisor, about their position and whether or not it's even a starter or not for me to actually discuss it with the customers. Because there's a lot of brokers out there trying the damnedest to help people with situations that are tricky, rightly thinking, okay, I'm struggling here, or there's one option, but what about equity release? So they're quite happy to get me involved in the discussion. And I say, sometimes I'm working with them, we're chatting together and almost working as a team to try and work out what's the best solution for the client. Don't get me wrong, we've still got to go through that full process after that, but it's really a question of, well, is equity release in the frame or not? So in the main, at the moment, it's people that have got interest-only mortgages. There's still loads of those around that are coming to an end. The rates have been going up, so they're on variable rate, they're on variable rate. The rates are going up, and they can't afford it, or basically the mortgage is coming to an end. So that seems to be the biggest reason. Although I've had just a referral last week from a broker where clients are wanting to buy, two later life clients who are partners. They've lost both their respective spouses, are joining together and buying a house together. I'm doing equity release for them as we speak to help them buy a house. So that was a referral on last week. And then home improvements, people looking to remortgage for home improvements that can't really afford the new rates, but then equity release comes in. And as we know, home improvements are one of the biggest reasons people take equity release. So again, you get those sort of referrals, but you get a wide variety. And I think for me, it's for the advisors, it's having the confidence that what equity release is, what it does, and then that it is a potential, tool in their kit bag. Whether it's there for them to use, i.e. they're authorised, but in the main, they know that they've got me there available to assist and work it through. So I'm just a tool in their kit bag, really, for their dealings with their clients. Many of them advertise that they do equity release on their websites, even though they're not doing it specifically themselves. They do put disclaimers in that they are referring it on, but they advertise equity release because they recognise it is a desired product in the marketplace, and they want to be able to offer it.
Right.
And so that many of them advertise that.
Sorry, mate. I'm just on that point, really. I think probably something that mortgage brokers don't think about. And I know the mortgage brokers that have websites, ones that don't, but for those that do, well, we'll come on to not having a website on social media in a second, but for those that do, having like something on a page on the website talking about equity release, and then obviously understanding that it's a referral thing from a compliance point of view. However, just by having it on there, there's two things. It will obviously display to the clients that you are able to refer to about equity release and at least have a very basic conversation about it. But then secondly, also from the broker's point of view, it will trigger their mind to go, oh yeah, and like when they're updating their website or looking at the website, because I know that's what brokers will be doing, looking at their SEO and looking at all those other things, adding equity release into their tool bag, as you rightly say, even though they're referring it on to you, it's still showing that actually from a consumer duty, common sense, holistic advice point of view, it's part of what I offer within my mortgage brokerage, even though I don't. This is literally that. Well, I'm going to say bolt-on, but that's doing you a bit of a disservice because I know you do work with brokers as a bolt-on. Because it's very much the referral, you're giving them feedback, you're talking through with the broker what's happening with that. So you are quite, it's not just a bolt-on. I think that is quite, it's not the right word to use, but it's going back to that trust thing with you is that you very much not only holding the hand with the client, but feeding back to the person that's referred in the first place, so they fully understand where the clients are and what the situation is and whether it's something that can happen or not today or in the future.
Well, that's right. And the other thing is that if you think of it as you're an advisor, if you've got your own company and you're marketing equity release, somebody might approach you because you've marketed equity release, but then equity release might not even be the right solution. So, they would automatically, I'd refer them back to the advisor.
And I think that's the thing that
and they may get standard business out of it or a normal mortgage.
Yeah, sorry about that. And that's the thing is like this is what you specialize in. And I think that's the thing with it, having that trust to know that referring the client to you, if you can't help the client, then obviously your feedback. If you can help the client, you'll be helping the client. But if you do spot any opportunities, you are just there to do something that that broker can't offer within their brokerage or business or their licensing anyway. So it's not a.
Well, that's right.
So I think, like you say, it's not you understand, that it's a case of like working with that brokerage to then build more, because that's the thing is you build on word of mouth, you build on referrals. You've sort of said that already before about how you build your business, and it is all around that. But it is a case of like working with the broker as part of their, even though you've got a different badge, it's still part of what they do and offer day in, day out. And I think that's the thing is with you with regards to the brokers that I know that you work with, it is an absolute great relationship.
Well, the other thing is you look at for instance, obviously there's equity release, but there's RIOs, retirement interest only mortgages. Now, it may be that somebody is more suited and or has a preference for a retirement interest only mortgage. Now, I do RIOs, but I would always refer them back to their original advisor. I've got one advisor that says, I don't like doing RIOs. Can you do them? If I've got a RIO, they pass it to me. So, they make it quite clear. They're like, not interested in RIOs, not interested in equity release. You do it, we'll just pass it to you. And that's fair enough. That's the way they work. But in terms of, if somebody referred a client to me that was looking at equity release and then that client, it became evident that a RIO was more suitable for them, I'd just refer them back to their original advisor. And I would always look to try and support that original advisor with whatever decision they make. Plus the fact that obviously that customer, if they've had advice, they've gone to an advisor, they've had advice, that advisor has then wrecked the shop by referring them to me. We've looked at equity release. They've then gone back to the advisor. That can only strengthen their relationship with their original client, because it's like that advisor's tried to look at all options for me. I know, okay, equity release isn't right for me, but
no, you're absolutely spot on.
That bond that they have with the original client.
That's like such a massive thing because I've talked a lot on the podcast about client retention and how important client retention is. I think if you've, like you say, if that client knows that you've explored every avenue and you've gone even as far as referring to you and looked at that as well, it's not only retaining that client within the mortgage brokerage, the person that's referring it to you is retaining that client there as well. They are as well likely to, and what we've seen is that then they'll refer to that. If they then know that client knows somebody else who might want to equity release or is looking to equity release and they've done it themselves, it then breeds word of mouth for the mortgage brokers. Then they then refer back to the original mortgage broker saying, you referred to me tomorrow about getting equity release sorted out. Great, amazing, thank you very much. I've got a friend who wants to do it. Can you refer them to Mark as well? And I think again, you sort of, because we've not even got onto income streams yet, which is obviously vital with any successful mortgage broker businesses, cash flow and income and the rest of it. We've not even talked about that, but about retaining that client and offering the holistic advice without actually paying for the license or doing the exam or having it within your sort of, it's just a great addition and tool in your tool bag to talk to clients about.
Well, yeah, as you say, I only go back to when I first started, and I say this to all advisors I first start with, is that when I first started in financial services, obviously it takes you time to build up pipeline and business. But one of the things that one of the things I quickly latched onto is that equity release is a solution for certain clients. And I discovered that equity release was always there, if you like. Gifting. I had several clients that they couldn't get a mortgage, but their parents did equity release to gift. I would refer them to an equity release specialist, and for that one phone call, I was then getting, in some cases, several £1,000 just for saying, "Can you help these people with equity release?" Now, it was a solution to my client's problem, but I also became very much aware that equity release is ever present. It's a solution that has to be considered and or discounted.
Yeah.
So is it right? Is it wrong? Do we look at it? Does it present itself in this situation for it to be discounted or not? I think again, horror story wise, I came across one advisor that had and this is a real consumer duty. I remember coming across one advisor when I was doing a session with some advisors, and it said, "Oh yeah, I had a client ring me up, and they said they wanted, equity release, but I told them that they didn't want any of that, and I did a retirement interest-only mortgage for them." And I said, "Oh, okay." I said, "So what do you know about equity release?" "I don't know much about it at all." And I nearly fell off my chair. I'm like, so a client wants a particular product or a particular feature, has asked you for it, and you in your wisdom have decided that they're not going to have it without them having the ability to consider it. So for me, it's just one of those things that when I was advisor, it was always, is equity release relevant to this customer? If it isn't, it gets discounted. If it is, then it gets included in a discussion, which is what consumer duty is all about, isn't it? It's just because you can't offer it doesn't mean to say you shouldn't discuss it.
I think that's a massive point, Mark. I think it is a massive point that you made there, because it does generate income, absolutely it does. However, it is about education for the mortgage brokers. It's about educating them in their understanding of what equity release is a product, what it offers, obviously the pros and cons to equity release in terms of it, but it's understanding from somebody like yourself. It's not with preconceived ideas. It's getting rid of those, and like you educate the clients when you sat doing the fact find and talking about the product and whether it's right or wrong for them. Brokers as well need to be educated on equity release, not to the length of obviously understanding the products inside out and things like that, but having a basic understanding of exactly what equity release is and the life-changing results that you see on a daily basis with regard, like say, interest-only mortgages is going to just even more people. We see this every day where the referrals we're getting of interest-only mortgages that are coming to end, and the bank, rightly so, wants the money back, and people are either dealing with it, burying their head in the sand, doing whatever they've done or whatever they're doing about it. That's their situation. But as a mortgage broker, you can't just sort of say you're not having that because of the lack of education from a broker's point of view. That's the same as saying that you're not going to have income protection because I don't really believe in it myself. I've not got the product myself, or I don't understand about it. It's like, well, how can you make that decision as a mortgage broker without? That's not right. That is not, and that's really where consumer duty comes in, and common sense does work, because it's a case of, well, I've got to explore and understand every single tool in my tool bag. And if I don't want to know more about it or much about it, that's fine. I can refer them to Mark, and who does know all about it, and I know and trust and got the relationship with. However, it's not a case of the computer says no because I don't understand it. It's a case of, well, and that's what you do, like you said there, where you'll do an education piece to a team of mortgage brokers, like going into a firm and explaining about equity release. So they've got somebody there that it's in that mindset of, it's like that growth mindset with that, isn't it? Really, it's like either the growth mindset would be, let's get Mark in and let's get him helping him with, we've got this, we need this tool in our tool bag moving forward, or you don't. And that's your call. You do or you don't. However, the people that are growing, the firms that are growing, the people do have that mindset of, well, what's the worst? Let's get Mark in. Let's get Mark talking to the brokers. And so he's educating them to understand it. But then at the same time, it's building that relationship up, and everybody's going to win. Like, there is no loser out of side of this situation, because you're only talking to the product. The product's only right for the right client, and you will determine that with you. You're not the salesperson, or you're not forcing any client to do this because you're not that kind of person. So the client wins because it may be the only option, and they maybe not looked at that, and they're then selling the home or moving, like doing various things they don't want to do later in life. And so everybody wins in that situation because client's looked after, client gets to end up with the situation they want. You've got a client, the broker's got a client for life, and everybody wins in that situation. And that's why, but it's just about educating the brokers that are just that, I don't understand it, so I'm not going to.
Well, the other thing I know we keep throwing the financial bit in here and there, but just back to that case with the Rio, and just as you were talking there, I was just thinking that actually the advisor that advised the client not to do equity release and did a RIO will have earned less for doing the RIO themselves than they would have done for referring the client for equity release. Had the equity release been right for the client, they would have earned more commission for a phone call than actually doing the job. So not only were they actually doing the client service by prescribing what the client should have, they were also shooting themselves in the foot because they would have earned more money from the equity release angle than the other side of it. So there were no winners in that situation at all. And you just think, well, a straightforward mortgage, the commission on it is quite low, isn't it? If you're just doing the mortgage.
Absolutely.
So in that sense, it didn't make any sense at all on any level. Let's be honest, Craig. We've worked with advisors all our lives, and there are those advisors that wake up to things and know what they recognise opportunities, and they're on them. And and then there are those advisors that only see what's in front of them, and which is a shame. In terms of the education part of it, it takes probably 10 to 15 minutes of a discussion with an advisor for them to get a reasonably good grip of what equity release is about, and therefore whether or not it's something that they would then need to refer or not. So it doesn't take a lot of their time to get to understand what it's about. Once they do understand it, it's I've had financial planners who've their initial thoughts has been, oh no, it's the devil. Nobody does equity release, and then 15 minutes of chat, they're like, oh, well, this is a good product. I might do. My own financial advisor, my pension advisor, said, I think I'll do it myself. And this was a guy that was, anti equity release. Next minute, he's planning on doing it himself. So it was a classic case of he didn't understand it, but once he understood it, it was like, well, that's a pretty simple concept, isn't it? And why wouldn't you do it? So. As you say, knowledge helps everybody. That's all I think advisors just need to have that understanding, a brief understanding of it, so they can pass that, to recognise whether it's something a client should be considering, and then obviously they just leave it to me. If as I say, there are some advisors that want more information and want more discussion. There are others that just, I get a quick email or a quick text saying, give them a ring, let me know how it goes, and I just ring them up cold. Well, not cold. They're now ringing.
Yeah, but we know.
They're being set up that they're going to get a call. And to be fair, that's where most of my business comes from. We haven't talked about where most of my business comes from. Advisors,
right,
and other advisors. That is where the majority of my business comes from.
And I think that's to be fair, Mark, I think that's down to you in terms of, because you understand what life's like as a mortgage broker. So you understand that mortgage broker, protection advisor, whatever, you understand that world. You've chosen to go down this special route. So referring to you who understand the mortgage broker role and understand what life's like for that, and then you specialize in equity release, just works from a mortgage broker point of view, because there's that connection there in the first place. So I think that's, and you say you are who you are. It's very much around, like, it's not a sales pitch. You build trust with the client. You build a great relationship. It's safe to say, for the right when I get my words out right, for the right client, you convert every single client. It's not a client doesn't walk away and go, do you know what? Like, I'm going to do it, but I'm going to do it elsewhere. Your clients, once they've had a conversation with you, build that relationship up and understand you a lot more, if it's for them, you're doing it. That's not a question, is it?
No, it's not, and that's probably because I don't push it. And I was, as you know, I was like that with when I did protection and things like that. I never pushed protection. I just educated the clients. I'm not a heavy salesperson. And all I did was educate the clients about how protection worked, what it was about, discussed it over a period of time with them. And as you know, I had a very high percent. What was it? 87% of some of my clients were taking protection. And now I didn't push it to anybody. Yeah. I didn't hard sell it to anybody. I didn't see. To me, people will make informed choices. All you do is educate them And then it's like, they feel comfortable with the knowledge. Give them knowledge and they're comfortable in their decision-making process, and they don't feel rushed, they don't feel pressured, and they're not pressured and they're not rushed. And again, I suppose the beauty for me is that, I'm not chasing money. I'm later on in life myself. I'm doing this because I enjoy it. I'm not striving to make a massive living out of equity release. So I don't see every client as a pound, shillings, and pence. I just see them as somebody that I enjoy helping, and if it's right for them, and I educate them, and they want to take it. So and that works. It's always better when you're not under pressure as a salesperson. I'm not a salesperson, but at the end of the day, you are still selling a product to people. You are still selling a concept. But it really does make it easy if that's where you're coming from.
Yeah, I think, like I say, it is the customer understanding the concept of equity release and what that means to them. It's not a sales process, really. It's just client understanding what the concept is and understanding what the solution is to the issue that they find themselves in. So, Mark, we've gone on sort of for over 40 minutes. We said we knew we'd be able to have a chat in a lot of detail about equity release, and more important, about equity release referrals. I think we've sort of covered about the importance of having consumer duty or common sense, however you look at it, having that relationship with a trusted equity release advisor. And I think, like you said, whether you're a sole trader or a firm, it's important to have that relationship. We've covered off that. If I'm sitting now as a broker or sat here as a firm owner, and I'm thinking I want to work with Mark and I want to get Mark involved with my firm or get involved with all my equity release opportunities, best way to reach out, is that LinkedIn, social media? We'll tag you in on the podcast. Is that the best way for people to contact you, Mark?
Whatever, probably not social media so much, but I mean, in terms of LinkedIn, if they want to message me on that, or I don't.
We'll put email you.
Email me. Mark at csfg.co.uk. And I'm happy to spend as much or little time with them as they want. That's I just feel as though I just like helping clients, brokers, everybody with their solutions, and it works, But they can get me on those bases.
Your email or LinkedIn, as you said. So no, that's fine, Mark. Thank you so much for your time. Thanks for agreeing to come back onto the podcast. And we might make this an annual thing. I didn't realize it was sort of May, June, and now we're into August, getting in September, and you're back on the podcast. We might make an annual thing moving forward. Who knows? But thanks again for coming on to the podcast, mate. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries.
Thank you for listening to the Mortgage Broker Broadcast, the podcast which helps mortgage brokers at all stages of their mortgage broking career. If you have any questions about this podcast or any topics you want us to discuss, or if you're interested in working with me further, then please get in touch.